So, Yu Yu Hakusho is considered to be one of the greatest shonen of all time for a reason. And now that I've told you that super obvious cliche blanket statement, let's dive right into what makes this show so good in the first place. In today's video, I mainly want to talk about something that a lot of shows overlook nowadays, the characters and their reliability. You know who the characters are, you got your Yusuke's, you got your Hie's, you got your Kuwabaras, but what do I mean by their reliability? When talking about certain characters, you can immediately point to 4 or 5 things that make those characters who they are. When you think about Sasuke from Naruto, for example, you think of an edgy douchebag. How often he maintains these traits is in turn a measurement of how reliable he is to his individual character. Obviously, that was meant to be a bit of a dig at Sasuke, but my main point still holds up when you replace Sasuke with any of the main characters in Yu Yu Hakusho. Take Kuwabara, for example. Throughout most of the show, he maintains a number of core values that don't change in a significant way, that make him a reliable character and arguably the heart of the show. Kuwabara is a steadfast, overconfident guy who is all about being a man and maintaining a certain level of both honor and loyalty at almost any cost. Being reliable doesn't mean that you're a two-dimensional character who sees no iota of change or growth, and it certainly doesn't mean that you'll never have moments where you're slightly outside of the parameters of the core values of your character. But it does mean that the majority of the time, the character will act in a way that doesn't contradict or impede on one's said core values. Without spoiling anything, there are some moments, specifically in the Dark Tournament, where Kuwabara acts uncharacteristically nervous, and even at times, he acts kind of afraid. This doesn't make him unreliable, however. In contrast, it makes him more human. If the character is trying to appeal to any level of humanity, which Kuwabara definitely is, then one of his core components definitionally has to be humanity, which in its essence is an imperfect value. So basically, being reliable is about sticking to your core values to a degree, but also maintaining your humanity or ability to slightly shift in your values when the story calls for it. Now that we've cleared up character reliability, and while we're still talking about characters, I want to touch on a few of the other main characters that really stick out to me. We already talked about Kuwabara, so let's move right along down the line and talk about Hiei next, since there isn't really much you can say about him without getting into huge spoilers. The thing that makes Hiei a great character in this show is the contrast he provides to the other characters. Although there is some development on this front in the show, he is the most ruthless of the group most of the time. Whereas Kurama has a certain level of compassion that he is working more and more to push further, Hiei seemingly doesn't have this, or at least not as much, which makes every time he does something savage that much cooler, as none of the other characters would likely go that far. Speaking of the demon, coming in at a weird middle ground, we have Kurama. I say coming in at a weird middle ground because although he is often far more compassionate than Hiei and actively trying to become more and more human, for lack of a better term, Kurama still has many moments where we remember that he is an ancient demon who is capable of straight up capping people without a second thought. I may end up having to do a separate video on Kurama because frankly there's just too much to talk about in this one video, but let's just say he's either my favorite or second favorite character in the entire show. Somebody who often gets overlooked is Botan. Botan is another character that I like a lot, even though as the show progresses, she becomes less and less of a serious character, and some of the time is even used straight up as a joke character, which I think the writer of the series, Yoshiro Tagashi, who is the same guy who wrote Hunter x Hunter by the way, does extraordinarily well. This is one of the few animes that can actually make me laugh out loud when it's trying to, and Botan facilitates that transaction really well most of the time. Yusuke Urameshi. In a landscape filled with happy-go-lucky protagonists, Yusuke is a total breath of fresh air because unlike other shonen protagonists, he is able to be funny, serious, and tough all at once while maintaining somewhat of a grumpy disposition. Obviously, he has a lot of the shonen tropes, but it's hard to fault him all that much because this show is the show that started many of the shonen tropes. My hands-down favorite thing about Yusuke is his ability to make tough decisions when the chips are down and his steadfast moral compass, which always seems to point in the right direction for any given situation. In some ways, Yusuke is able to embody some of the best parts of both Kurama and Hiei when he is forced to do so. For example, sometimes the best course of action is to be compassionate like Kurama. Other times though, the best course of action is to be an absolute savage like Hiei, and Yusuke is able to make that distinction pretty effortlessly most of the time in a decisive way. Also, quickly before we move off of Yusuke, his relationship with Keiko is one of my favorite anime entanglements that I actually like because it's not really super in your face. So seeing that this is my first video back, I decided to do something special, so I reached out to my boy Sensei Incorporated to hop on this video with me and talk a bit about his favorite things about Yu Yu Hakusho because I know he's a huge fan as well. Obviously he'll be linked in the description below, so make sure you check him out if you haven't already. Anyways, take it away, Sin.
Hello, Tyler fam. I am here today to help out my buddy Tyler and tell you guys why I love Yu Yu Hakusho. Now, I thought it would be perfect to start this whole conversation off with a small story on how I got into the show. It's quite funny and I've told it before, but I'm sure none of you on this channel have heard it, so here it goes. It all started when I was about 6 years old. Yes, I said 6 years old. Now, I know what you're thinking. At 6 years old, there's no way that you could have possibly absorbed everything that's great about Yu Yu Hakusho. And of course I didn't. But the story is funny because I actually stumbled upon it one night when I fell asleep in my living room. I woke up and there was late night anime on Cartoon Network, and Yu Yu Hakusho happened to be on at the time. Now, I had no idea what was going on. I think it was in the middle of Genkai's training if I'm not mistaken. But my point is, at 6 years old, action is action, and there was a lot of fighting. Needless to say, my mom walked out and caught me watching it, and I was banned from watching Yu Yu Hakusho as a child. Of course, at some point I grew up and I got access to the internet, and I always kept that with me from my childhood, Yu Yu Hakusho. I always remembered the name, so one day I could find out how to watch it, start from the beginning and actually enjoy it, and boy did I. It is my favorite anime by far. It's not even close. Tagashi might be my favorite mangaka, and I don't have much time to talk about the things I love, but I'll give it a shot anyway. First and foremost, the trope of delinquent characters is my favorite, and with that, Yusuke Urameshi is my favorite MC in anime. He has all the redeeming qualities in a shonen MC, but he's also very unique because not only does he have badass moments, but there's also a slight edginess to him and a little humor to add to it. I'm going to try to stay spoiler free in this conversation, but from the very beginning, there was a moment that Yusuke was involved in that let me know the type of person he was and how his character would play out throughout the story. Yes, sometimes he can be a little wild and a little loud, but he does care about his friends. He's someone that time and time again has jumped into the face of adversity and fought for what's right. And even though he can be a little rough around the edges, he is deep down a good person. With all of that being said though, he's not my favorite character. My favorite character is Kuwabara. And ironically enough, my second favorite character in anime is Knuckles from Hunter x Hunter. And they're basically the same character. You can tell what type of character tropes Tagashi likes to indulge in. But Kuwabara is an awesome character because of how human he is. I love characters in anime that have human qualities, and Kuwabara is exactly that. He has all of the limitations that regular humans would have, and he has to constantly fight against them to evolve and become stronger. He has nothing given to him. He doesn't have some sort of untapped potential. He doesn't have some sort of destiny or inherited will. He is a human being, and he's surrounded by monsters, so to speak. And I don't mean monsters in the sense of scaring anyone, in the sense of people that already have limitless potential. I love the fact that Kuwabara has to face adversity and be someone that is just normal. He will constantly jump straight in to help his friends, even though he knows that he's weaker than his opponent. And there are even times in the story where he is afraid, and I love that about him. Kuwabara, in my opinion, plays as the human character. He is the person that's supposed to be like us and how we would act in those situations. We might be bold because we're trying to save our friends, but we know our limitations just like Kuwabara does, and he fights through them and in a sense breaks his limits. All in all, there are so many cool characters in Yu Yu Hakusho, and I believe out of everything, that is what I love the most. I recommend this anime to all of you. Please go check it out. If you don't like anime and you prefer manga, the manga is just as good. Please go check that out as well. And for you English dub sticklers, the dub is amazing for Yu Yu Hakusho. I prefer it over the subbed. And I mean, come on, who doesn't love Smile Bomb? I can listen to that song over and over again. It never gets old. Either way, these are the things I love about Yu Yu Hakusho. I hope that I helped you out, Tyler. Thank you all for listening to me, Tyler. Thank you so much for having me on your video. As always, I hope you all are staying safe and healthy during these trying times. This has been Sensei Inc., and I'm passing it back to Tyler.
So now is the moment that you all saw coming from the beginning of the video. Should you watch Yu Yu Hakusho in 2020? And I think the answer is pretty obvious, but I'll say it anyways. Drumroll please. No. Just kidding, yes. It's probably my favorite anime of all time at the moment, and you can chalk that up to a healthy mix of unbridled nostalgia for the show and it being genuinely that good. Yu Yu Hakusho is sometimes regarded as the birth of modern shonen, and I think there's a lot of merit in saying that. Obviously, there were shows that came out before it that may have started some things, but I feel like overall, Togashi's work on this show is really what pushed the genre forward in a good way. What do you guys think of the show? Leave your comments in the comment section down below because we will be bringing back the comment of the week section next week, thank God. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Again, huge shout out to Sensei Incorporated for hopping on this video with me. He's been an awesome friend ever since I met him, and also a great resource to me whenever I need help with some YouTube stuff. So yeah, go check him out. He's linked in the description, and yeah, that's it. I will see you all next time.